My background is basically military law enforcement and high-level protective security. I've spent a career over about 35 years, out of which mostly has been done working internationally, doing those kinds of high-level protective details. I was in charge of security for a head of state for a number of years. I spent 10 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, working for the US Department of Defense and the US Department of State. Eventually ended up being the Deputy Director of the largest security program in Afghanistan. I then left there, went into the NGO world for several years on the security side, also in sort of hostile environments such as South Sudan and so on and so forth. And then eventually came back home to South Africa, started up Kinetic Solutions, working very, very closely with global Phalanx, and we do work all over Africa and also in other continents throughout the world.
Similar to Adrian's, from a law enforcement military background, with working with DOD, DOS, private sector, working with oil and gas, working with insurance companies, doing asset recovery out of Somalia, the Middle East, all over. Basically everywhere where you don't want to take your family on holiday, that's where we've spent a lot of our time. I've spent over 10 years in these types of environments. So yeah, I believe I've been real world educated in my medical environment that I've worked in.
Well, TCCC is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. It was developed originally for the US military, for their Special Operations Command. And it came out of a huge amount of analysis that took place over a period of 20 years or more of all the incidents that happened in war zones. Now, if you think of the last 20 years just in Iraq and Afghanistan, that's a huge amount of incidents. To give you an example, when I was in Iraq, when I left in 2005, there were 150 attacks every single day as an average. So that kind of information was extrapolated, was analyzed, and literally every wounding, every gunshot, every IED, every person that survived, every person that died was analyzed, and they worked out really what were the reasons why people lived and why people didn't live. And they formulated this into originally a thing which was called Combat Lifesaver, which then evolved into Tactical Combat Casualty Care. So it really is the gold standard of battlefield medicine, quite different from the way things used to be done. And that is born out of experience. It's born out of proven research, tested in the battlefield. And currently we're the only company in the whole of Africa who is accredited to provide Tactical Combat Casualty Care, also known as TC3. And it really is information which, particularly in our environment in South Africa, we live in some sort of a hostile environment. We are subject to huge amounts of high-level crime, violent crime, gun crime, knife crime, and people need it here. If you're engaging with somebody in a self-defense situation, you're just as much likely to get shot as the other person. So it's very, very important that you need to know how to treat yourself and or the person next to you, which could be your teammate if it's in a security context, or it could literally be a family member who's also been with you when you've come under attack. So it's life-saving, evidence-based, proven training which has stood the test of time over the battlefield.
For the lay person, for the staff member, for the mom and dad, for the children, okay? For everyone that's out there. Guys, you're all doing first aid training. You're all doing CPR training, right? Where's your hemorrhage control? Because CPR is not the #1 cause of preventable death on planet Earth, yet 12 million people did training last year on CPR. How many people did hemorrhage control training? How many people did stop the bleed training? How many people understand that we have hemostatic agents out there now, like Celox, that will stop bleeding in 60 seconds? For me, that's my passion. I want to get our training, I want to get our products out to every person out there, because it sounds cliche, I know, but that is the reality. First aid doctrine needs to change. It needs to include hemorrhage control training, right? There's nothing in current first aid doctrine that really deals with the number one cause of preventable death on planet Earth, which is bleeding. Yet it's written into every single company's health and safety. It's written into everywhere. You have to do first aid training, and first aid training is actually missing a massive part of it, and that is hemorrhage control. Now, that's where we come in. We've positioned ourselves with strategic partners to make that happen. You're talking about a tactical environment. That's not necessarily your only environment that you're going to use our training or our products, right? Take, for example, the TC3 was originally developed for the naval special warfare and the special operations community, but very soon afterwards it was adapted to TECC, so Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, which was developed for law enforcement officers working in the US responding to active school shootings. Right. Then they developed PHTLS, Pre-Hospital Trauma Life Support. Now, these courses work along the basis of the MARCH algorithm, which is your massive hemorrhage, airway, respiratory, circulation, hypothermia, and head injury. By just adopting that algorithm, you increased your survivability by 75%, and that we can prove through what Adrian was speaking to you about with the statistics that are brought out of battlefield medicine by the US since Vietnam, and we can prove all of this stuff in a civilian context as well. And the reality check is, if you're bleeding out, no one is going to arrive to help you to stop that bleed. The only person that's going to be able to stop that type of situation is either you or the person standing right there. And that's the biggest reality check I would want people to actually get. Not to scare you, not scare tactics, but a reality check.
Yes, we do. We do quite a wide range of training. In fact, the TC3 training, even though it's called Tactical Combat Casualty Care, it actually is a standalone medical component which anybody can use. It's about dealing with the trauma of being shot, being stabbed. If you put it into a more civilian environment, it could be you're on a building site and you fall over, and a foreign body object goes through something vital, severs an artery, so to speak, and you can apply exactly the same kind of training that you could on the battlefield into a civilian scenario. So even though we do TC3, it's our flagship, so to speak, it's not the only kind of training that we do. We do other levels of training. We do a lot of hemorrhage control work. We're stop the bleed instructors, we're BLS instructors. So there's quite a wide range that we can offer to people should they need it. Okay, TC3 is not for beginners. It really has to be for people who've already gone through their basic competency training. They then need to go and do further tactical firearms training, and particularly they need to be very comfortable with that weapon, shooting it two-handed, left-handed, right-handed, shooting at day, shooting at night, using flashlights. So really prior tactical combat training with firearms is going to be essential. We work very, very closely with companies around South Africa, in particular with Bravo Tactical Africa here in Joburg. They offer absolutely top-level training, and we know that anyone who comes from them is going to be ready for the training for us. So just to recap, not for a beginner. You've got to really be at least at an intermediate level, and then if you're at that level, we can take you further and get that marriage with the tactical medical, the TACMed aspect, and take you further down the journey on your training.
That's what I'm passionate about, is getting this information, getting this knowledge, getting this experience that I've gained. You know, you do what we do for that long, and there are things that you still remember, and some of them are not nice, and I don't want to go into too much detail in that, but we want to use that negative stuff and turn it into a positive, and that's really what I'm passionate about, is taking all of that experience that I've had, all of the horrors that I've been exposed to, and turning that into lemonade. You know, take lemons and turn it into lemonade. And that's what I'm passionate about, is getting this knowledge to you guys.
We're not teaching hearsay. We've been out there, we've been into the worst situations on the planet, in the worst countries on the planet, and we've done this for real. And there's nothing in our training that hasn't been proven, tried, and tested. And a lot of that stuff we've tried and tested it all ourselves, and that applies to the firearms aspects, and it applies to the medical aspects. So I think in terms of somebody who would think about coming for our training, ask themselves, Do you want to be trained by someone who's been out there and really done it for real, or someone who's actually just got the theory and is teaching somebody else's experience? I think that's the main factor, is that we are a proven entity. We can prove everything that we've done. There's the photos, there's the videos, there's the letters of recommendation, and it's across quite a broad spectrum, from presidential protection through to PSD, through to normal close protection, through to counter-piracy, through to winning hearts and minds of people out in the back end of Afghanistan. So there's a huge amount of experience in there between the two companies, and we want to pass that on to people. We think it has value. We think that the way we do it has value because it comes from the heart. This is a passion of us. It's something that we enjoy more than anything else that we do, and we want to get that out there to people. And the bottom line is, it's saving lives potentially, and that is the best thing that we can take home from it.